Hi folks, Ruben Swartz, founder of Remembering the CRM for people who hate selling and the host and chief nerd on the Sales for Nerds podcast, and I'm here to talk about video calls. In the best of times, video calls are fantastic. They cut down on the need to travel, whether it's around the world or across the country or even just across town at rush hour. They let you see what the other person is doing, see their face, see their expressions, see their hands. They'll let you share elements on the screen. It's the next best thing to meeting in person. And now, thanks to Corona, that we're not really allowed to be meeting people in person so much, they're essential. So, like most of us, I don't really like seeing myself on camera. This is kind of awkward, but I wouldn't think about, well, I'm not going to go out in public, right? Maybe I would make sure I shaved and dressed appropriately and so on, but I wouldn't think twice about going out in public. But video seems scary for people. And as someone who's got a podcast, who hates hearing his own voice, and certainly does not necessarily like looking at himself on screen, I get it. But we've got to get over our fear of that, and here are some tips. So first of all, your setup. If you've got a professional video setup already, you're probably looking at this video saying, I don't need to listen to this joker anymore. And you'd be right, because I am not a professional videographer by any means. I don't have a fancy setup. Probably the one thing I have that's sort of nicer than normal is the microphone. But you don't even need that. A lot of the times when I'm on a call with people, I'm just on my headphone anyway, my headset, which has the microphone built in. It's perfectly fine. We're not going for Hollywood quality video and audio here. I also use my built-in webcam. Pretty crappy, frankly. And it's not the kind of thing that you want if you're going to do some kind of professional video. But if you're doing a video call with somebody and they're going to have you in a little window anyway, it's fine. Should I invest in a webcam? Yeah, I really should. But should I let that stop me from doing a video in the meantime? No. Now, most modern phones have a much higher quality camera than you have in a computer, and you can use that as well. But keep in mind that if you're actually trying to have a meeting where you're sharing documents or other things on the screen, that might not work quite so well. Next thing, your room and lighting. If you've got a ton of hard surfaces everywhere, the audio can get a little bouncy, but I wouldn't recommend stopping on that. You do want to have enough lighting that you don't look absolutely terrible, if possible. Again, I wouldn't stop on any of these things, but a little bit of lighting makes a big difference. And I'll show you what happens if we turn the lights off and close the blinds and the windows. Here we are in the dark. And then something else that I think is interesting is you're actually, if you're at your computer, you're staring at a giant light, and that's going to make a big difference. So if I have dark windows on my screen, I'm going to look darker. If I have lighter windows on my screen, it's going to shed more light on me. What do you know? So you can use some of the screen brightness to dial up or dial down how you look. In fact, if I crank up the brightness on my screen, I can make it almost too bright. This is probably not such a big deal as it was even 5 or 10 years ago, but whatever the appropriate dress is, remember, people are going to see you. It's not the same as making a phone call. Keep in mind, I'm only wearing shorts, but I've got my dress fleece on. And I have had calls where I forgot, oh gosh, we're on video, I forgot to shave. And then half the time the other person says, well, I'm still in my pajamas, it's all good. We have a good laugh and we move on. So know your audience, but don't overthink it. I think the dress is in some ways more about how you're going to set yourself psychologically for the calls. Next, let's talk about the actual physical setup of the computer. So again, I am not a professional. What we really don't want is like the up nostril view when people have their screens tilted or we're off camera somehow. We want to be looking at the camera at eye level as much as possible. And one thing that's hard, there's this tendency to want to look at ourselves, the little live streaming video of ourselves, or the video of the other person, which is actually kind of how we're supposed to have a conversation. So I try to keep all of those things as close to the camera as possible so my eyes aren't making too much of a dramatic movement. And then what you can do also is some of the paranoid folks like Mark Zuckerberg will put a little piece of tape over their webcam. And what you can do, I don't really do that, but I take a piece of tape and I stick it on top of the camera just so there's this like bright pink thing focusing my eyes at that instead of just a little tiny light. Now, the other thing that I think is important is we're not just having a conversation with someone's face, right? If I come in here and just talk like this, suddenly it's a different kind of conversation than when we're back here having a more normal conversation, right? When we're meeting someone face to face, we don't talk literally face to face. is just an expression, right? We're sitting there and we can see each other's body language to a certain extent. Now, you can't see everything, but critically, you can see the hands. And I think you want to make sure that you have enough distance from the camera that people can see your hands. One, it's just a way to communicate. And as Vanessa Van Edwards said on Sales for Nerds, she had some great points about how much information is conveyed in the hands, and also critically, how it's about trust, right? We're sort of programmed to wonder where the other person's hands are because we don't want them to attack us. Now, that we're not saying that's actually going to happen, but that's kind of built-in human psychology. So if we ever get back to in-person networking, don't walk around with your hands in your pocket. We are programmed to care about where people's hands are. So have enough distance from the computer or the phone that people can see what you're doing with your hands. Now, if you do get into screen sharing and looking at documents and each other's desktops and so on, try if you can at the end of the call to come back to the actual video. Wrap up face to face, person to person, the same way you would if you were huddled over some documents and then you wrapped up. You wouldn't just scurry away and leave. You would look the person in the eye, shake hands, whatever the stuff is we're not supposed to be doing right now, but we can do it virtually via the video camera. And I think the main thing is don't wait for the perfect setup. You can spend 5 minutes getting your situation, your room, your computer, your background applications being the right color, to start doing this in a meaningful way and connecting with people in a more meaningful way than you can over the phone.